Have you figured out your niche? Are you helping adding value to other people's lives? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to Munira's Musings with your host, co-author of Conversations with Top Real Estate Investors Volume 3, Munira Zahabi.
Greetings from Chicagoland. Are you an entrepreneur? Are you looking for a niche? You know, it seems that as an entrepreneur, we're always looking for the next thing because something's better out there. And we put all kinds of efforts in and we never get anything back, or we are just struggling. You know, Munira's Musings is a show about niches, and in each show we showcase a new entrepreneur and an influencer, a coach, a person that can help you by talking about their struggles, their journey to their niche. And they share the entrepreneurial strategies with us. If this is something you can relate to and want to take away, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. This way you'll be notified when we release another video. Good morning, folks. This is Munira Zahabi. I am the Niche Navigator. I'm here with my friend, Baird. Hi, Brian.
Hello there, Munira. How are you doing? How's everybody else out there?
Everybody's wonderful. And Brian is $1 million. He creates $1 million feeling. I want to learn how. So, Brian, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, let's say, to be more specific, people have to create their own $1 million feeling. And what I do is I lead them to the parts of what they need to have in their experience in their lives so that they can have a steady $1 million feeling. And it's really about the feeling, not $1 million, although money could be a byproduct of being a healthy spirit, so to speak, in the world of business. And to get people to $1 million feeling, what we do is we examine what's standing in the way of their success and then just help them kick that away so that they get clarity and purpose, or are able to focus on the clarity of purpose that brings them what they really want in life.
So for this to happen, the person that you're working with has to be open to the suggestions that you're giving them, right?
They have to be open to exploring. They have to have a certain degree of willingness to openly discuss their lives. Not that I need to know the whole story. I rarely need to know the story. I just need to know what it is that stands in their way. And we all, to some degree, have something. Even with all my own experience, there are things that I bump into to go, oh, I got to learn from this so that I can keep moving forward. So it's in the process of evaluating what's going on in our lives, or if we don't know, we can do this together. Whoever's working with me, we can do it together and figure out what it is that's in the way.
How did you find your calling? So you had to go through the same process, I believe.
Well, it's a little bit of an arc. I don't know how much time you want to give us, but I'd like to point out that when I was 12 years old, I lived in a world where I wanted a 10-speed touring bike, and there was no means in the family, nor any interest in the family supporting my getting that 10-speed bike. And so I went to a garage sale. I bought a broken lawnmower for $1. I fixed it for 25 cents. I bought a gallon of gas, and I was now in the lawn cutting business at the age of 12. And at the end of that summer, I bought the bike and I had money left over. So I kind of got the bike as an entrepreneur, the calling as an entrepreneur there. And it took many, many years for me to realize that that was a very materialistic path. And it's not that having fine things isn't a good thing. I'm not saying that at all. It's just that I was putting the cart before the horse in so many ways, in that I was focused on money and external things to validate who I was as a human being. And over the years, life was teaching me that I needed to do a little bit more of a soul searching thing, a little bit more of an inward look. And in the course of doing the inward look, I crossed into this realm of understanding that by addressing who we are in the interior, it remedies and rights everything on the outside of who we are, including our relationship with money, our relationship with loved ones, our relationship with the universe, whatever it is you want to do. And so it's almost a spiritual aspect to running a business. And in the process of running a business in that model, it turns out you're more attractive. You get more customers, you get more steady, reliable employees if you have team members, and you end up with a much happier experience or existence. And joy is one of those byproducts. And then money follows later.
So as an entrepreneur at 12, what were the lessons that you learned?
Well, pretty early on, I did adopt the model of doing for others as part of my business and having money in return. So I looked at money as an exchange for providing value. And there were some early aspects to me, although it wasn't really a natural energy that was, or I shouldn't say that, I'll rephrase that. It wasn't an easy energy for me to be giving back to people. However, there were a few people when I knocked on their doors and asked if they wanted their lawn cut, they told me they couldn't afford it or they only had $3. And I would say, okay, I hear your story and all you need is to cover the cost of gas. Can you do that? And I would cut their lawn because they may have been older or had other issues that were going on and they still needed a nice yard. So, and in the neighborhood I was working, none of the yards were so big that I was burning myself out doing that. So I did have a little bit of the give back thing going on even at my first iteration at business. And as I did more and more business over the years, I realized that the give back model is actually an essential part of doing business.
So why is giving back such an important thing? I mean, not only for you, but for everybody. I mean, why should they give back?
Right. So much of what I teach in the business model, and I can do personal work with people who are going to be leaders or want to be leaders. Much of what I do when I do work on actual businesses, which is multiple people in an organization, one of the things that we discover is this interconnectedness, or they discover with me, the interconnectedness of everything. And the fact that if they can't be attracted, then it's much longer, harder, deeper slog to create customers and keep them. It's a much more challenging effort to actually attract the right employees and keep them, because the culture is all out of alignment with what this interconnectedness is all about. So what we do is we can work on what makes them more attractive by addressing those things that are making the business out of alignment with that connectedness. And it's in the connectedness that we all have. Like Munira, you and I are 900, 800 miles apart, yet we can still be interconnected, not just by video, energetically. And the interesting part about this is for anybody out there going, oh, this is too woo-woo for me. There's science behind all of this. The science of the universe says everything influences everything. At the particle level, at the gravity level, at all kinds of areas there. So I have no qualms talking very openly about the ideas that we are all interconnected. And then once we get that down and start building a culture around interconnectedness, it resolves a lot of issues in our business in terms of team players, customers, even with ourselves.
That's awesome. So lawnmower business, and then you went into corporate and worked there for a while before.
Well, because I was an entrepreneur, I did that for the rest of my my school years, so to speak, and then I joined the U.S. Navy. I could make that a whole story in of itself, so I won't go into all the details. In the Navy, though, I learned something about myself that was a new lesson. Although I was kind of undaunted in starting a lawn cutting business, it was kind of like a happy accident. It was just an impulse thing. Maybe the universe gave me an idea. So when I went into the Navy, though, I had a lot of doubts about my abilities. At least academically, I had a lot of doubts about my abilities. And in the Navy, I was in the nuclear propulsion program. So we had to learn nuclear physics. And I actually was pretty challenged in struggling with the physics and the math in particular. And so I was at jeopardy of failing out of the nuclear propulsion program and ending up just in the regular Navy, so to speak. And I really didn't want that to happen. There was some part of me that says, no, I got to prove that this can be made to work. So I did not only pass through the nuclear propulsion program training program, I was in the top, not the top, but I was in the top strata of the class. And it took a mind shift to do that. And then once that happened, it set the pace for another couple of dozen years of my life where I realized that if I set my mind to something, I can do it. There were other things that had to be worked on, However, that was the next lesson, and that's what carried me for many, many, many more years. At another point along the way, I ended up becoming a parent. I was a slightly older parent than most people maybe think as being a parent. I was 42 years old. And having a child changes your focus in many, many ways. You start to look more inwardly, and you start to learn from your children too. So in that process, that's where I started to build an internal compass that really hadn't been there. Most of my entrepreneurial work was about external validations, praise, money, success that came from external things that I would often be part of creating. However, I really didn't have that interior core. And so that was the next stage of where my life had been going. And in the course of having developed more and more of my interior core, I started to realize that there were things that I was learning that made business easier because I had this interior core, as opposed to forcing everything to happen.
You know, thank you first for your service. That was awesome. How long did you serve in the Navy?
I was in a 6-year program. I only made it 2 years because of a medical thing that came up.
Okay. And so you said having a child changes focus, right? And it does, because, you know, at any age when you have a child, you're now caring for a new person. And like you said, the little kids, they teach you a lot of stuff. I have kids and they teach me stuff all the time.
Yep. Now she's in college and I learn from her every day.
Okay. So how did you get into the $1 million feeling business, the coaching, and how did you do that?
Well, I was a long-term studier of sales and psychology and the psychology of success. And I had an experience a few years back where I realized that there were forms of shortcuts to changing or your mindset or letting go of those things in the past that aren't the way. One of the things that's kind of curious to me is how many people are willing to spend $50 a week or several $100s a month to sit on a couch and talk to somebody for 3 or 4 years and only have little tiny transformations that take place. And I'm like one of those people who says, no, that's too long, too much money. I'm not paying for somebody's kid's college education for something I need an answer on right now. So I bumped into things along the way that were improvements to the psychology of success model that are very, very efficient, very, very effective, and very exciting. Like, you know, in a few weeks, somebody could be completely shifted to a different place, which is what most of us need. You know, we have money challenges in our life or relationship challenges. We can't afford 3 years.
Yeah.
So the discomfort, or even if you want to use the word pain that's going on in our lives, needs to be remedied fairly quickly. And there is no pill. We have to do the work. We just need somebody to show us how to do that work, and we want it and need it to be efficient. And that's the tool set that I bring to the table. It's helping, especially leadership in businesses, because they often are bringing stuff from their personal life into the business and not even maybe even aware how it's impacting the culture of the business, just because they themselves have some things that would be really powerful to let go of.
That could be another conversation for another day, because we could talk about leadership and workplace.
Right.
But let me ask you this, to keep on track. You talk about mindset, and you said people can change their mindset like that in a matter of a few weeks. What are a few tips that you can leave with our viewers that they can implement right away that can see the mind shift?
I'll just leave us with two primary, I won't say they're easy, there are two primary things that would make a big difference in how we can begin the path to a clear mindset, a ready, focused mindset. And one is to have an honest conversation with ourselves about what it is that's in the way. We very often want to tell the stories because we really don't want to look at it. So if we can figure out what it is that's in our way, that's the first step towards a mindset shift. The second step is being willing to take ownership for your life. All the things that have happened to you are not excuses. They really are happening for you so you can learn. And so by taking ownership of your life and then looking very openly in an internal aspect of who you are, you can begin the path. It's not the answer. It's just a way to get started towards shifting our mindsets towards clarity and purpose and achievement.
Awesome. So I'm gonna be the devil's advocate here. You said have a conversation with yourself. How does one do that? I mean, do you write it out? Do you talk to yourself in the mirror?
That's an excellent way to do it, is write a letter to yourself.
And say what?
Just tell yourself, in fact, I'll even phrase it. Tell your 3 years from now self what you want them to know today.
Oh, okay. Okay. So it's like, what would you tell yourself if you were, when your 15-year-old self, right?
Well, if one path is to say, talk about who you are today, have the 3-year version of what you think you want to be, talk to you about what's going on today. And it's very interesting how many things will come up and you go, oh, I didn't realize I didn't trust myself. That's one possible scenario. Or another way to write a letter is to take who you are today and write a letter to your 15-year-old self, giving them advice on what to do so that what happened today might have been different. I don't like that one as much because it really means there's regret about where we are. And everything that we've had happen in our lives is really just part of this journey of learning and learning to lean in on who we are as human beings. And maybe we discover our purpose today. Maybe we discover it 3 months from now. Maybe we have a sense of what our purpose is. And frankly, the reason for living is very, very powerful in the human psyche. So to get those things done, writing the letter is a very powerful way to do it. I prefer you take the 3-year version ahead of where you think you want to be and write it to yourself today. However, you could write a letter to your 15-year-old self to say, I've learned these lessons, please learn them early.
You know, you bring a good point. So going back to the letter, right? I'm writing a letter to myself in 3 years, this is what I want, or this is what I am striving to be. And when you read this letter, I've already walked the walk and talked the talk. How does that is that like a vision board? Is that telling me that that's the path that I am on? Because many people don't know the path that they are on. So how do they find that out? By just writing a letter?
Well, it's interesting to me that when you write a letter, there is a different energy that comes through you than when you just sit there and think. You fold your arms up, you sit in a chair and somebody asks you a question. You're very, 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 very much in your head and your voice in terms of responding to people. When you're writing something, you're taking that voice, the verbal part of who you are, and you're putting it down into your solar plexus area, or even below that. And I won't get involved in all the energy discussions that people can talk about that are far better at it than me. It's just that there are energy spots in the body, and the writing part still involves some of the head, except it comes from the solar plexus and the other energy sector underneath that. Those two together provide channeling information to our bodies so that when we're writing, we're doing something that's far more creative, far more energetic, and far more honest. Self-honesty is really part of what I'm suggesting here, right? And when we speak, we're very used to speaking, not necessarily untruths, but speaking in protection of those truths. So writing is just a different place to be, and that's why I recommend this, because it pulls it from, if you want to talk about chakras, it pulls it from between the root and the solar plexus. All of your energy for writing comes from in there, and your truth comes out.
Something to think about. I'm going to start that. So let me ask you this. You talk about energy healing and spirituality. Did you go to school for this? And how long does it take to learn all this?
Is this where I should tell you I'm a total amateur?
So you're learning.
My credentials as a hypnotherapist and also a neurolinguistic practitioner, and also an engineering minor, math minor in college, computer science degree, and then 47 years of entrepreneurship and I'll call it relationship development with myself and relationship development with others.
You know, you bring so much value to the table, and I know 15 minutes isn't enough. There's so much to talk about because you have such a wealth of knowledge. Any last words for our viewers?
Last words. I would love people to tune in. Maybe Munira, you should come on my show. I have a radio show on Saturday mornings that's live in Eastern Time. You can listen to it anywhere in the world, although it is a broadcast through New York City area radio station called $1 Million Feeling. And in that, I also have recordings. So if people go to $1millionfeeling.com, they can see the recordings and listen to past shows. And some of those shows are spectacular, and some of them, they have information. Most of them really bring up some interesting things, and you get to see, especially with the guests, you get to see some very interesting perspectives. And in there, just doing that, you can find transformative material for yourself.
Perfect. So there you go, folks. You know, the thing is, to become a $1 million person, you have to go through the feeling. And I think it's like gold, right? Because when you take the gold, it's that piece of gold that you find that used to be found, not anymore. Right. And you take those nuggets and then you put them through fire, and it comes out as something that's very pure. And
right.
That's what cleansing has to happen. That's that path that has to be taken to get to the other side, to become that person that truly feels like $1 million. Because if you feel like that, then you can achieve it, right?
Right.
To achieve it.
The way we describe it, you break down a little bit, you break through, and then you break free. It's in the break free experience you have $1 million feeling.
There you go. So, people, look him up. Brian is just, I've met him in person, and I'm just acclimated to his teachings because he has so many good points. And this comes from experience as well, and the fact that he has touched so many different lives. If you like our show, please like and subscribe. And if you'd like to be a guest on Munira's Musings, go ahead and contact me, because that's what we want to know, is your journey, about your journey and how you came through to your niche. Thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate it. I'm honored and humbled. And thank you again.
And I appreciate the great questions.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Munira's Musings with your host, Munira Zahabi. If you enjoyed our show, please share and subscribe to this channel. And for more content, please join our Facebook group,